are in the podcast studio. It is one podcast after another, looking at all different topics. But this one is exciting because I'm very, very interested in non-gaming apps. I understand the interest in gaming apps, but non-gaming apps, different story and a whole lot of opportunity. And who better than you, Alex Lee, Senior Director, Global Non-Gaming App Discovery, which is what it's all about at AppLovin. First of all, what a title, okay? Got to ask you, what are you responsible for?
Yeah, I think they just concatenated everything that I touch and just put it into a title. But realistically, what I do is I look after the go-to-market motion for our direct business, which is App Discovery, which is AppLovin's UA platform.
Which is really important if you're a non-gaming app, because you might have, with a gaming app, you got a little bit of extra cred, a little bit of extra reach through the excitement of the game or the IP. But non-gaming apps, they have to be found. They have to be discovered. It's a different story for them. What are you doing to help non-gaming apps be discovered?
Sure. Yeah, I think it's a lot around the education process. A lot of non-gaming advertisers, of course, their brands get natural lift because their marketing mix is going to be a lot more different, right? I think a good portion of their budget actually goes towards brand. And when they think about performance, typically they don't dabble much outside of the SANs, right? So for us at AppLovin, we're really excited because we obviously have massive supply. Our AI algorithms have been proven to deliver a lot of really great results. So our key focus right now in the early innings is just really evangelizing and educating customers around the possibilities of identifying new users, right? That ability to really reach the right person at the right time with a really great piece of content, especially in kind of a full screen video setting, which just isn't really available at the scale that we deliver.
I'm hearing some things, I listen in the marketplace. I've heard some people say, yeah, I've got budget. I'm putting it into AppLovin. So it's working for gamers. I hear that a lot. Non-gaming, is it a different dynamic or is it the same level of performance? Because again, there's performance and then there's like the impact of brand on UA spend. So there's a way to have a little bit of the best of both worlds.
Obviously, we'd love to have the best of both worlds. I think the way non-gaming has evolved, originally, a lot of the early success was in verticals where either the folks in marketing came from gaming, right? If you can imagine, like there was obviously like a mass exodus from a lot of gaming companies post-IPO or acquisition, where a lot of really smart people who understood performance went to a lot of leading, I would say, like D2C businesses, and they kind of overhauled the UA motion and really began to think about performance. So with a lot of those folks, that conversation is kind of like just riding a bicycle again, where they're familiar with us through exposure from the gaming days. They understand down funnel KPIs. So they're buying on ROAS, they're buying on custom events. They have an MMP, right? You'd be surprised sometimes some folks don't have an MMP, right? So that process again is, kind of an apples to apples conversation. I think to your point, a lot of non-gaming advertisers, just think about just most large brands, in the US and globally, they view mobile as kind of the still unexplored frontier, and then performance is just a subsection of that. So for a lot of those folks, we're kind of are starting from a 101 level, right? Like what is an MMP? Like why do you even need attribution? Whether it is through a Just or another provider, why does performance matter, right? Like, and how does brand sort of fold into that? So we're starting top down and then really working to educate them through the entire funnel of ultimately, like, what is your ROAS target? Do you have a CPE goal in mind and all those kind of things?
So what do you think? Are they more, because they have been able to sit out the mess of trying to figure out everything from the start. Is that a case of fast follower or bridging gaps? I mean, how sharp are brands in mobile?
I think these are a lot of really smart folks because especially as like the economy has contracted, there's been a bigger focus on obviously the cream of the crop. So I think that matters from a headcount personnel as well. So a lot of the folks who are at these really big non-gaming companies are super smart and super digitally savvy. I think, the forcing function now is that as everything gets a performance layer, they're looking to move outside of the channels where traditionally they've just been able to pour all their budgets into. And I think obviously, like thinking about the macro place, channel diversification remains top of mind, right? No one wants all their eggs in one basket, as you can imagine from what's happened with like Scan, for example, right? So testing new channels, testing new AI models is really interesting for a lot of folks now. And they're kind of applying that same practice when it comes to evaluating.
Just thinking I'd like to be a fly on the wall when you're trying to teach brands about Scan, because even the gaming marketers I know are having a problem with that. How is that working out? I mean, are you finding that you are being then more of a consultative company and an educator company, or enabling? Because brands, as you said, they have to pick up on this, and they have a lot of different concerns. I mean, it's not just about reach and performance. they're thinking about brand safety and what does my brand look like, and giving up control
Yes.
over the brand. That's tough. So you're like part company, part analyst, part psychoanalyst, even
part therapist.
Therapist, exactly.
Yeah.
How does that look?
I think we have to be consultants first before we
Uh-huh.
can enable, because I think the number one thing, the bridge we have to cross, is just sort of trust.
Yeah.
And trust can take form in a lot of places. You mentioned brand safety is a really important one, because for a lot of large advertisers, if brand safety isn't sort of a clear checkbox, it doesn't matter how good performance is, it doesn't matter how good scale is. I think that's one really interesting sort of topic that we've been leaning into as we begin working with larger brands where they have like a brand safety team or like a review team, all those different aspects, because they spend media everywhere. And when they think about kind of like the open web, or they think about mobile, they tend to just stay to the sources that they know, because their kids use the apps, their grandkids use the apps, right? And when they venture outside of the walled gardens, it takes a lot of education to help them understand the video format, right? Like what we're actually doing, the controls that we have in place, even educating them around the
and
concept.
the quality of inventory.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or even just the concept that like Apple does in app review too. So the fact that you're only running on apps that Apple actually approves to get put in the App Store, even that is an education point. So it is literally from scratch sometimes.
Where do you find they struggle the most? Because brands, I know, they understand the opportunity. I was reading something just before coming to Mal about, brands are piling into games. They really are getting it. That's games, right? This is non-gaming apps. It's a different audience. It's a different dynamic. It's also even a different objective.
Yes. It's interesting because, a lot of AppLovin supply is a lot of the leading casual games out there. So we actually are able to get the best of both worlds, where a lot of non-game advertisers see the value of being in games because it is a brand safe experience, right? If you are playing wordscapes, for example, right, you're doing basically a word puzzle. There's not any risk of user generated content. There's no like live feed, live stream. So a lot of the brand safety risks that, a lot of these advertisers fear don't really come to fruition, because that just is not possible in the environment where, our games exist. And that is just a mental leap that they have to understand, right? Because maybe sometimes when they think about games, they think of like a Call of Duty, for example, where there's like mics and feedback, and a whole lot of stuff can go on, right? But when we think about sort of like the casual, hyper casual space, there is no risk of brand safety because there's no scroll functionality, right? Like you don't have a Twitter feed or anything along those lines. So it really is very much, this experience where advertisers can feel very safe about where the ad is shown, what the experience is before the ad, and actually after the ad too.
How do you also get that in front of them? Are you saying like, this is the type of brand you have, so these are the types of games you can consider? A little bit of also a broker function in there as well. I mean, obviously AppLovin as what it does, but when brands are a little bit clueless, what do they get? Do they get like a starter pack of some kind? Here's your introduction to casual games where you can be and you can sleep at night.
Certainly, yeah. As we go through kind of the brand safety conversation, the number one thing is helping them understand two components. One is, we have our own very stringent publisher policies on top of what Apple and Google mandate in order to have apps published in the app stores. Okay. Second piece is just helping them understand the reach, right? Like 170 million DAUs in the US, over 2 billion reachable devices globally. So the scale is significant in terms of who we're able to put ads in front of. And then ultimately the idea that, our system is going to rely on AI, right? We have Axon 2, which is the newest iteration of our targeting engine. And the system is going to decide where to place the ad, but the totality of the supply is brand safe. So what we typically do is just help them understand a couple of those scenarios, right? We show them the ad experience, have them even download the app, and even just that mental gap of, I can go to the app store, I can download Wordscapes. I've played Wordscapes, that just helps bridge that experience for them.
And what is it when they're thinking about the games? Are they thinking about, this is top of funnel for me, this is awareness? I mean, what are brands thinking about what this is and where this fits in their own strategy? Because it was, for the longest time, it was just like, be there and that's great. But now it's probably performance, a little bit more, thinking about it, maybe even retention. I don't know. What are you finding?
I think we're seeing a slow shift. It depends on the size of the business, right? Okay. Like very large businesses, there's always going to be an inertia, but there is, like, you just hear performance a lot more now, right? And I think traditionally for a lot of non-game advertisers who aren't super mobile savvy, or, they haven't been in mobile embedded, they've always thought of performance as like delivery, meaning the impression serves, that it's a viewable impression, right? And then, so that's already like first point. Second point is then moving to, okay, their idea of performance is the actual install. And that's like the base case for us is that we are optimizing, we optimize towards down funnel KPIs. But, an install to us is actually when the user opens the app for the very first time. So when we engage, they're already like, wow, you're so much more performant than what we already thought our end goal was.
Already interacting with the app. It's not just like download, it's like download, open, and interact.
Exactly.
So a lot of this is about the app experience. I want to switch over to your personal experience, Alex, because it's a great time in the industry. It's almost like, we are witnessing some amazing stuff going on, some really frustrating stuff going on too. And some shifts,
at the same time.
Both at the same time, talk about privacy. That's, I have a lot of friends through all the interviews I've done with all the marketers, and they confide in me. And it's just like, this is such a pain, understanding privacy, preparing for it, testing for it. And it's going to be never ending. I remember talking to one marketer, I won't name her, but she was like, do the math and you figure out privacy sandbox, I'm probably good to say exactly where I am till about 2028.
Yes, it is a constant calendar juggling.
It's like, how long can I sit this out? It's not jumping in there with both feet. So what does that do for a company like you when people are like, you know what, I'm just going to hold tight for a while?
I can't comment too much more on that, but certainly it's you
have to deal with it.
Yes. I will say that, privacy remains top of mind for a lot of non-gaming advertisers. But again, I think, we just have a lot of initial conversations where they understand our approach. Not necessarily a lot of folks in the non-gaming space have heard of AppLovin as a company. I would say we have a lot stronger of a name recognition within the gaming space or mobile first businesses. So it's really just helping them understand, that we're also a publicly traded company. Like we have our own approach towards privacy, but ultimately there's nothing that we would sacrifice in the short term that would jeopardize a long-term relationship or put our advertisers at risk.
And they'll have to learn at their own speed.
Yes.
Really. They'll have to just, it's really not helpful to push and say, but I'm seeing some great numbers at the same time. I don't know if you have insights at AppLovin. I didn't look, but there's opt-ins are really positive. There is some movement, and there is this idea of, it's difficult, but things that are worthwhile are difficult. Yes. And if you stand up to it and you step up to it, you're going to be ahead of some other companies who aren't, right?
I think that's a really great tagline. Things that are difficult are worth it. And I think that's probably really indicative of, I think, the AppLovin DNA and the way that we approach solving difficult problems, because they are worthwhile. And I would say certainly, we see macro tailwinds, right? I think obviously it's always good to have, I think, the past couple of years as a comparison, just because they've been so volatile. So we are seeing a bit more stability. I think a lot of non-game advertisers just are more excited now, right? They're peeking their heads out from hibernation, and we just want to make sure that we're there when they're ready and to sort of work them through the education cycle as seamlessly as possible.
Talking about cycles, your own career is a bit of a cycle, right? So Data AI to here.
App Annie.
App Annie. I remember App Annie.
Yes.
I remember App Annie. I have some great T-shirts. I'm holding on to those.
I still have them. I have the old App Annie cursive T-shirt. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So we're seasoned. You can say that. We're seasoned. Been there, done that in a way. It's been a ride. What are you thinking to yourself when you're maybe making some notes for that eventual Netflix series that you can produce based on what you've witnessed and done in your life?
I typically try to approach most things personally and professionally with a form of gratitude, right? I think with everything going on in the world, the ability to work on really interesting problems with really smart people at companies that are at the forefront of what they do has always been something where either I've lucked into it or just had the good fortune, or I guess that's both. But I find myself really grateful for the time that I spent, at every company I've been at. App Annie, certainly when I joined in 2014, was a really exciting time to be there, working with the founding team, both on the revenue and on the insights team. So I started off on the data side, so a bit of a data nerd myself. It was just really cool because it was a first to market product. The conversations that I was able to have with advertisers is actually kind of similar to what we're doing now with non-gaming, which is it's starting from scratch. Right? Originally, then it was wow, you can measure your competitors on mobile like you can with Comscore or Nielsen, and watching that evolution go over my tenure there, 6-7 years, seeing more verticals opt in, sort of being there when mobile kind of ate the world, as they say, or like kind of ate desktop, was a really cool journey. And I'm really grateful for my time there. I only have positive memories, but it's certainly a ride. And, I was certainly surprised to see the news that came out.
So people like you, you're supposed to see around corners because of that, being seasoned.
A healthy paranoia.
A healthy
yes,
paranoia.
yes.
And look around the corner, give us a little look in. I don't like the crystal ball thing. I'm not going to say what's happening next, but, help me understand the possibilities of where you see this going. Is it like consolidation? Are we in a shift? Is this the tipping point for something? Or is this really just business as usual in the ever-changing mobile space? So don't take it so seriously.
There's a tendency to sort of vacillate between opposite ends of the spectrum. I think for us, it's, we're in the very early innings of Axon 2, which is the recent ML deployment, or AI, I guess to use the proper term these days. So we're really excited. I think we're less than 3/4 in from when the product released. So we're still, the technology, the AI is still learning on itself. It's still iterating. So our key focus here on non-gaming is just continuing that education cycle with as many advertisers as possible, right? Exposing them to sort of the power of the platform, delivering a lot of great results for advertisers that we've seen. There's a Chinese health and fitness advertiser called Enerjoy. We just recently did a case study with them where, we're now their largest. I think we're a top 2 channel. So we're even beating out some of the SANs just from a performance perspective. But if you just zoom out to a year ago, they may not have known who we were.
So really what's coming next is what we're hearing all the time. It's just going to get more and more sophisticated with AI. Your algorithm, which is kicking ass, I have heard. So it's really just going to go deeper in that direction, or is there something that we're not thinking about that is going to play a role here beyond just the focus on diversification, the focus on non-gaming apps coming up to speed and being like gaming apps, of course, AI as an enabler?
I think AI will enable like a lot of different aspects of the marketing journey. I think for us right now, the targeting and optimization is the key focus, but we have a number of parts of the business, right? Like we have Spark Labs, which is our in-house creative studio, and they're certainly leveraging AI from a creative aspect. And as I imagine for most marketers, like AI when it comes to localization or testing new different creative types is top of mind for them and sort of either driving better efficiency or just enabling them just to do more with fewer resources, right? I think for us, I imagine that the team almost operates in sprints, kind of like a product team. So right now, the focus is really to work with as many advertisers as possible, expose them to the AppLovin technology, and find a way to continue to improve on what we've been able to deliver so far. I think, we have a lot of interesting initiatives, right? Like we acquired Whirl, which is a CTV business, and we integrated a lot of that supply. So CTV is really interesting for performance marketers. We're still really trying to understand, how marketers buy, because it is, again, an education cycle. A lot of them are used to buying on a pre-negotiated CPM, and so there's a lot of understanding there around
how they buy and how they measure success.
Exactly. How do you measure on return on ad spend? Because you've never done that before. So that's just, again, starting from first inning with that.
We started out talking about data.
Yes.
And you are a little bit of a data nerd. And so am I as well. What would you say is, from a data perspective, something that we need to grasp, that marketers need to grasp, that they are perhaps not? Maybe they're not looking at the right metric. Maybe there's, I've been talking with people about they're looking at different things.
Sure.
Anything in the world, because it has to be measurable. We have to have that single source of truth. That's what everyone needs to rally around. What should it be?
Single source. Well, I think, for non-gaming advertisers, it's really interesting because they have an evolved marketing mix. Because typically the majority of the spend goes towards brands. So they have internal BI that sits on top of an MMP, for example, that will ingest MMP data and then apply other KPIs to it as well. For us, given the fact that, AppLovin's DNA is in performance, the number one thing that's important for us is just getting the advertiser to align on a goal that we can optimize towards. And it sounds simple when you say it, but sometimes it requires...
But pick it.
Exactly. You have to parse out. Obviously, if you're, let's say, if you're a game advertiser, or if you're very gaming adjacent and you have a day zero ROAS goal, every dollar goes into it, and every additional percentage of yield that comes out from a channel like AppLovin means you can further invest in there. Right. And it's instant feedback cycle. The reporting is very clean, and it's very technology reliant. For a lot of non-game advertisers, if you have offline, if you have web, you have TV, you have linear, right? You have a lot of different channels that are sort of in the mix. And so we talk about the broad picture, but what we ultimately try to arrive at is if we can deliver X for you, right? Like, what does that do for your business? And that's where the consultative part comes in.
Yeah.
Because sometimes they don't even know.
Yeah.
Right. Just because there's so many channels in the mix.
That's true. I hear that so much, and they're like, well, we're looking at this event, but no, we're not actually really looking at that event. That event is indicative of something else, and that other something else is the real deal.
Or sometimes they don't even, they won't pass us the event name, so it's just called Event 1.
Smart.
Yeah.
You have your work cut out for you. I have to say, great interview, and just catching up with you, Lee, and hearing about it. And I only have to say that there's going to be definitely more to tell. So maybe have you back.
Awesome.
At least next Mal. Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Great stuff.